in standard awards board.
A gun control speech in Oklahoma. That's a risk. But this speech was originally delivered in Washington, D.C., just days after the tragic school shooting in Parkland, Florida. The speaker, Emma Gonzalez, was a student that survived that horrible carnage and along with other classmates traveled to the Capitol to plead with lawmakers for stricter regulations on automatic weapons. She speaks with a clarity and purpose. And despite what some critics may have said, she's no professional actress. I invite you to listen with an open mind, for her message deserves a hearing. This is We Call BS by Emma Gonzalez. Every single person standing up here today, all of these people should be at home, grieving, but instead we are up here, standing together because if all our government and president can do is send thoughts and prayers, then it's time for the victims to be the change that we need to see. Since the time of the Founding Fathers and since they added the Second Amendment to the Constitution, our guns have developed at a rate that leaves me dizzy. The guns have changed, but our laws have not. And we certainly don't understand why it should be harder to make plans with friends on weekends than to buy an automatic or semi-automatic weapon. In Florida, to buy a gun, you do not need a permit, you do not need a gun license, and once you buy it, you do not need to register it. You do not need a permit to carry a concealed rifle or shotgun, and you can buy as many guns as you want at one time. I read something very powerful to me today. It was from the point of view of a teacher, and I quote, "When an adult tells me that I have the right to own a gun, all I hear is my right to own a gun outweighs your student's right to live. All I hear is mine, mine, mine." Instead of worrying about our AP Gov Chapter 16 test, we have to be studying our notes to make sure that our arguments based on politics and political history are watertight. Students at this school have been having debate on gun control for it feels like our entire lives. Some discussions on the subject even occurred during the shooting, while students were hiding in the closets. People involved right now, those posting, those tweeting, those doing interviews and talking to people, are being heard for what feels like the very first time on this topic that's come up over 1,000 times in the past 4 years alone. I found out today that there's a website, shootingtracker.com. Nothing in the title suggests that it is exclusively tracking the USA's shootings, and yet, does it need to address that? Because Australia had one in Port Arthur in 1999, and after the massacre introduced gun safety, and hasn't had one since. Japan has never had a mass shooting. Canada had 3, and the UK had 1, and they both introduced gun control, and yet here we are, with websites dedicated to reporting these tragedies so that they can be formulated into statistics for your convenience. I watched an interview this morning and noticed that one of the questions was, do you think your student will have to go through other school shooter drills? And our response is that our neighbors will not have to go through other school shooter drills once we've had our say with the government. And maybe the adults have gotten used to saying it is what it is, but if our students have learned anything, it's that if you do not study, you will fail. And in this case, if you actively do nothing, people will continually end up dead. So it's time to start doing something. We are going to be the kids that you read about in textbooks. And not because we're going to be another statistic about mass shooting in America, but because we're going to be the last mass shooting. Just like Tinker v. Des Moines, we're going to change the law. It's going to be Margie Stoneman Douglas in that textbook, and it's going to be due to the tireless efforts of the school board, the faculty members, the family members, and most of all, the students. The students who are dead. The students still in the hospital. Students now suffering from PTSD. The students who had panic attacks during the vigil because the helicopters not leave us alone, hovering over our heads for 24 hours a day. There's one tweet that I would like to call attention to. So many signs that the Florida shooter was mentally disturbed, even expelled for bad and erratic behavior. Students and classmates knew he was a big problem, must always report such instances to authorities again and again. We did. Time and time again since middle school. It was no surprise to anybody who knew him to hear that he was the shooter. And those saying how we should have not ostracized him, you didn't know this kid, okay? We did. And we know there are coming mental health issues, but we need to pay attention to the fact that this was not just a mental health issue. It wouldn't have harmed that many students with a knife. And how about we stop blaming the victims for something that was clearly the shooter's fault? Faults the people led by the guns in the first place, those at the gun shows, those who encouraged him to buy accessories for his guns to make them fully automatic, those who didn't take his guns away from him when they knew he expressed homicidal tendencies. And I'm not talking about the FBI. I'm talking about the people he lived with. I'm talking about the neighbors who saw him outside holding guns. The president wants to come up to me, tell me to my face that it's a terrible tragedy. That should have never happened. I'll happily ask him how much money he received from the National Rifle Association. Do you want to know something? Doesn't matter, because I already know. $30 million. And divided among the number of gunshot victims in the 1.5 months of 2018 alone, that comes out to being $5,800. Is that how much these people are worth to you, Mr. Trump? If you do nothing to prevent this from continuing to occur, that number of gunshot victims will go up. And the number that they are worth will go down. We will be worthless to you. Every politician taking donations from the NRA. Shame. If your money was as threatened as us, would your first thought be, how will this reflect on my campaign? Which will I choose? Or would you choose us? And if you chose us, would you act like it for once? You want to know what would be a good way to act like it? I have a good example of how not to act like it. In February of 2017, just 1 year ago, President Trump repealed an Obama-era regulation that blocked the sale of firearms to people with certain mental illnesses. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not a psychologist, but I don't need to be a psychologist to know that repealing that regulation was a really dumb idea. Republican Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa was the sole sponsor in this bill that made it harder to perform background checks on people adjudicated to be mentally ill. But now he's stating, for the record, well, it's a shame we're not doing background checks on these mentally ill people. Well, duh. You took that opportunity away last year. People in our government that were voted into power are lying to us. And us kids seem to be the only ones who notice, and our parents to call BS. Companies painting caricatures of the teenagers these days, saying that all we are is self-involved and trend-obsessed, and then they hush us into submission when our voices don't reach the ears of the nation. We call BS. Politicians who sit in their gilded House and Senate seats, funded by the NRA, telling us that nothing could have been done to prevent this. We call BS. They say stricter gun laws do not decrease gun violence. They say a good guy with a gun stops a bad guy with a gun. They say guns are just tools like knives and are just as dangerous as cars, and we call BS. That nothing could have been done to prevent the hundreds of senseless tragedies that have occurred. We call BS. That us kids, we don't know what we're talking about. We don't know how the government works. We call BS. And if you agree, contact your local congresspeople and give them a piece of your